Now that we have designed our questionnaire, we need to ask ourselves another question. Whom are we going to submit the survey to? Answering this question requires defining the target population and the sampling criteria. First of all, we need to define the criteria to identify the target population, that is the entire group of potential respondents that we want to study. This means defining the demographic characteristics of the subjects under investigation, who could be individuals or organizations. The typical criteria may include geographical limitations, for example, a country like Italy or a continent like Europe or a region like Lombardy. Age characteristics. For example, we may be interested in young adults between 18 and 30, or in startup companies not older than 3 years. Company size, in terms of number of employees or value of sales. Industrial sector, usually defined adopting standard classifications recognized at international level, such as the International Standard Industrial Classification ISIC provided by the United Nations. Other relevant criteria based on objective and available information, such as belonging to a specific group of individuals or companies. For example, we could be interested in companies listed in the stock exchange or alumni of Politecnico di Milano. In the IPS project, we adopted these criteria to define the target population. Companies operating in the country where the research team is based, so Italy for us. Companies with a minimum of 50 employees. Companies operating in the private sector in selected industries. Once the target population is defined, it is usually too big to submit the survey to all the subjects included. Therefore, we need to extract a sample of respondents, usually aiming to obtain a sample representative of the entire population. In this way, we would be able to use the data about the sample to infer some general conclusion about the overall population. But how big a sample we need? Well, it depends on some factors. The confidence interval, or sampling error, that is the range of percentage points that we can accept as margin of error. For example, let's imagine that we ask our respondents if they like a certain product. If we accept a sampling error of 5% and we obtain as a result that 20% like the product, it means that we can be confident that the result for the entire population will be between 15 and 25%. The narrower the desired confidence interval or sampling error, the larger is the sample needed. The confidence level, that is how sure we can be that the estimates derived from the sample are generalizable to the population. In our example, if we accept a 95% confidence level, it means that we can be 95% confident that the population that will like the product is between 15 and 25%. Also in this case, the higher the desired confidence level, the larger is the sample needed. Estimated prevalence of the variable under investigation, that is the proportion of the population expected to answer in a certain way. If we expect a concentration of answers on a value, for example 99% yes and 1% no, we don't need a very large sample to obtain a very accurate estimate. But if we expect a very balanced distribution, for example 51% yes and 49% no, we need a much larger sample. In case we have no preliminary estimate, we need to consider the worst case, that is 50-50, and therefore we need a large sample. So we can calculate the required sample size n with this formula, where t is the coefficient given by the desired confidence level, p is the estimated prevalence of the variable of interest, m is the desired confidence interval or sampling error. If, for example, we have t equal 1.96, which corresponds to a confidence level of 95%, assuming a normal distribution. P equals 50% if we don't have an estimate. M equals 5%, we obtain a sample size n equal to 384 responses. But what is the relationship between size of the population and the sample? Actually, if the population is large enough, that is greater than 5 or 10,000 individuals, or unknown, the sample size is practically independent from the population. A sample of a few hundred individuals is equally good to investigate a population of 10,000 or 10 million individuals. If instead the population is small, it is better not to sample at all and target the whole population.